One decision. That's all it took to shatter an empire built over generations. She wasn't just a member of the family, she was its heart. Yet, her actions didn't just shake the foundation, they burned it to the ground. This is the haunting tale of how one woman destroyed her own bloodline. For centuries, families have risen to power through unity, legacy, and perseverance. But what happens when one person's ambition, desperation, or betrayal brings it all crashing down? In today's video, we'll take you through the extraordinary rise and catastrophic fall of a family whose name once commanded respect and influence. At the center of it all is a woman whose choices turned that legacy to ashes. We'll explore the family's roots, her controversial decisions, and the series of events that unraveled everything. But what drove her to act the way she did? Was it greed, revenge, or something far more personal? Stick around until the end, because the shocking twist in this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about loyalty and family. If you love exploring stories of ambition, betrayal, and the darker sides of human nature, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. The Delacour family was a name that echoed through the corridors of history, synonymous with power, wealth, and an unparalleled influence that shaped the very fabric of their society. They were the architects of an empire that spanned industries, finance, real estate, and art, and their legacy was cemented by their unmatched philanthropy. From grand galas that funded hospitals to anonymous donations that rebuilt communities, the Delacours carried an aura of benevolence, masking the iron will that drove their success. Their legacy was a tapestry woven with ambition and vision. For generations, the Delacours had been admired and envied, their name a symbol of resilience and grandeur. The family crest, an intricate phoenix rising from flames, symbolized their ability to thrive against all odds. But beneath the gilded surface lay secrets, whispers of alliances forged in the shadows and debts repaid in blood. At the heart of this storied family was Evelyn Delacour, the youngest and perhaps the most enigmatic scion of the lineage. Raised amidst opulence, Evelyn had an innate charm that could disarm the staunchest critics. But it wasn't just her charisma. Her keen intellect and unyielding determination had earned her the unofficial title of heir to the empire. Evelyn was both adored and feared within the family, a woman who understood that the weight of the crown was often balanced by sacrifice. Yet, even as Evelyn worked tirelessly to uphold the family's legacy, she couldn't ignore the quiet unease that had settled like a shadow over the Delacours. Unspoken tensions simmered beneath the polished facade, and the echoes of choices made long ago seemed to reverberate through their present. Unseen, a storm was gathering, its first winds whispering warnings that the Delacour empire, for all its might, was built on fragile foundations. The unraveling began with a decision cloaked in secrecy, a choice Evelyn believed was both necessary and just. She had discovered discrepancies in the family's accounts, funds siphoned into offshore accounts by her uncle, Victor Delacour. Confronting him in private, Evelyn made a fateful decision. She would expose him, not just to the family but to the world. What she did not anticipate was the ripple effect her actions would unleash. Her motivations were a volatile mix of loyalty and a hunger for change. For years, Evelyn had watched as the family's wealth and power came at the cost of integrity. She was determined to set a new precedent, to strip away the corruption that had seeped into their empire. But there was another layer, buried resentment. Evelyn had long felt like a pawn in the family's grand schemes, and this was her way of breaking free from the shadows of their expectations. Victor, humiliated and enraged, did not take the betrayal lightly. His allies within the family rallied behind him, accusing Evelyn of overstepping her bounds. The once unified Delacour clan splintered into factions, each vying for control of the narrative and, ultimately, the empire. Boardroom meetings turned into battlegrounds, and holiday dinners dissolved into shouting matches. The media caught wind of the scandal, and headlines painted the family as a dynasty in decay. Amid the chaos, other key players emerged. Celeste, Evelyn's cousin and Victor's daughter, felt torn between loyalty to her father and admiration for Evelyn's courage. Her wavering allegiance only deepened the rift. Meanwhile, Adrian Gray, a shrewd investor and family friend, saw an opportunity to exploit the division. He began whispering promises of support to both sides, carefully sowing seeds of distrust for his own gain. Evelyn's actions, though rooted in righteous intent, had set a fire she could no longer contain. The family's carefully constructed empire was now teetering on the edge, and the weight of her choices bore down on her with crushing force. Unbeknownst to her, the storm she had unleashed was only the beginning of a reckoning that would spare no one. Her once calculated ambition spirals into chaos as every decision she makes worsens the circumstances. To sustain her dwindling lifestyle, she secretly embezzles money from the family business. When discovered, it fractures trust irreparably. Desperate to maintain control, she allies with a rival family, promising them a foothold in the business, an act viewed as betrayal by her siblings. The revelation of her financial fraud leads to a cascade of betrayals. Her husband, already estranged due to her manipulative tendencies, files for divorce, citing infidelity with a business partner. Her siblings, once loyal confidants, sue her for embezzlement, exposing the family to public ridicule. The lawsuits escalate into a bitter public scandal. Every dirty secret comes to light, from falsified documents to hidden affairs. The siblings no longer speak, each blaming the other for the family's downfall. The public watches in fascination as their once-admired dynasty crumbles. As the legal battles drag on, their father, a pillar of strength, suffers a fatal heart attack, unable to bear the shame and stress. His death leaves the family rudderless. Soon after, the business declares bankruptcy, and creditors descend, seizing assets. With their patriarch gone, the family's relationships disintegrate entirely. Old wounds resurface, and the siblings turn into bitter rivals. Accusations fly, and the family name becomes synonymous with scandal and ruin. The family estate, a symbol of their legacy, is auctioned off to pay debts. As strangers roam the halls, picking apart their history, it becomes clear there is nothing left. The final image, her standing alone outside the estate gates, clutching a faded family photo as the auctioneer's hammer falls. Nothing remains but the memories of what once was, a powerful family undone by ambition, greed, and betrayal. In the quiet that followed the storm, she found herself utterly alone. Her allies had turned away, her family estranged, and the wealth she once wielded as a shield now gone. Each decision replayed in her mind like a haunting melody, but regret only came in fleeting moments. She often chose denial instead. "It wasn't my fault," she'd mutter to the shadows of her empty apartment, convincing herself she had only done what was necessary. Yet the emptiness around her spoke volumes. Nights grew longer, and the silence was unbearable. Isolation became her only companion. The family name, once a symbol of power and prestige, was now synonymous with greed and tragedy. Generations of hard work, influence, and respect had been obliterated in mere years. Without an heir to carry it forward, her estranged siblings refusing to reconcile and choosing quiet, separate lives, the bloodline faded into obscurity. What remained of the family story lived on only as cautionary tales whispered in boardrooms or told in the tabloids. The dynasty, once untouchable, became a footnote in history books, a stark warning of ambition turned toxic. The world watched her descent with a mix of morbid fascination and schadenfreude. She became a symbol of hubris, her name invoked whenever discussions turned to the dangers of unchecked power. Where people once envied her, they now pitied her. Documentaries and exposés chronicled the family's downfall, portraying her as both a tragic figure and the architect of their demise. To the public, she was the villain of her own story, and yet there were those who saw her as a cautionary figure, a reminder of how ambition, without balance, can destroy everything in its path. As she sat in the dim light of her modest new home, flipping through a worn photo album, she came to understand the weight of her choices. The photos showed a family full of hope and promise, now fractured beyond repair. She would live the rest of her days in the shadow of what she had destroyed, unable to rebuild and too proud to seek forgiveness. The world had moved on, but she would remain trapped in the aftermath of her own making. As she reflected on the choices that brought her here, it became clear that her actions were a mix of intent and circumstance. Some decisions stemmed from calculated ambition, alliances made and risks taken in the name of power. Others, however, were driven by desperation and fear. The mounting pressure to uphold the family's legacy, coupled with her own insecurities, created a perfect storm of poor judgment. Did she know the cost? Perhaps. But like many who seek control, she believed she could outmaneuver the consequences until it was too late. Her story underscores themes that resonate deeply: the corrosive power of unchecked ambition, the fragility of trust, and the devastating impact of betrayal within a family. It also explores the illusion of invincibility that wealth and power create, only to shatter under the weight of human flaws. At its heart, This is a cautionary tale about the delicate balance between ambition and integrity and the irreversible damage that greed and mistrust can inflict on relationships. Viewers are left with several powerful takeaways. Power and wealth, no matter how vast, cannot protect a family from the consequences of betrayal. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild, especially among those bound by blood. And perhaps the most important lesson, ambition, when pursued without regard for others, often leads to self-destruction. Her story is a reminder that success achieved at the expense of relationships is hollow and fleeting. As the story comes to a close, the audience is invited to reflect on the moral complexities of her journey. Were her actions justified, given the immense pressure she faced? Could the family have been saved if they had acted differently, or was their downfall inevitable? How much of their destruction was rooted in her choices, and how much was a result of the dynamics already at play? In the end, her story asks us all, what price are we willing to pay for ambition, and is it ever truly worth it? In this tragic tale, we've witnessed the rise and fall of a once powerful family, undone by betrayal, ambition, and greed. Her decisions, born out of a desire for control and survival, ultimately led to the destruction of everything she held dear: family, legacy, and trust. The consequences of her actions are a stark reminder of the fragile nature of power and the irreversible harm that unchecked ambition can cause. If you found this story captivating, stay tuned for more tales of power, betrayal, and legacies lost. We'll explore even more complex characters and the twists of fate that shape their worlds in upcoming videos. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think she could have redeemed herself, or was her fate sealed? And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with your friends for more gripping stories like this one.